What if the kingdom of God isn't just about heaven someday, but where and how you're supposed to live right now? Jesus said, "Fear not, little flock, for it's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." Jesus came to bring the kingdom of God to earth today, in his day and in our day and every day. Go take a look. That's all he talked about. But the question is, did we as a church in 2026 receive that message, or did we change it, distort it into something safer, more distant? And even more personally to you, what does the kingdom of God actually mean to you in your day to day life? Jesus also said, "There are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God come with power." So, what was he talking about? The kingdom life that was in Jesus was meant to, and then did, begin to multiply and expand into his disciples as they multiplied. In Luke 22, Jesus tells his disciples before his death that he will not drink again from the vine until the kingdom comes. And Peter later says that Jesus did eat and drink with them after his resurrection, meaning the kingdom had come. It had spread from him into his disciples and was meant to spread throughout all the earth. So, from John the Baptist to Jesus to the apostles, the message was always the same: the kingdom of God is at hand. So we have to ask, what does that mean for us today? But before we get personal, we need to understand, what is God doing? What is his plan, and how do we fit into it? Because if we misunderstand God's kingdom, we fall into the trap, or at least run the risk, of being citizens of another kingdom entirely. So what is God's kingdom culture? Kingdom culture is God's own life, his way of being and living in the world, manifested in and amongst his people. It's not church programs or doctrines. It's his order and design for your real life day to day. I know this is a little abstract, so stay with me, because this actually changes how you live tomorrow morning when you wake up. So, what does a kingdom need to exist? It needs governmental authorities to establish its rule and order, and it needs priests to connect the people back to their God. And the Bible calls this coming new order the order of Melchizedek, where mature sons are raised up to function as both priests and kings. Now, you probably are well aware you fall short of these lofty titles, but God is calling the nameless and the faceless to be raised up, that he can transform you into something far greater and more than you can be on your own. In other words, heaven's government expressed through heaven's people. God is raising up priest kings to help his people endure and navigate the shaking, the difficulties of the last days, whether those last 10 years or 1,000. To do this, if we're going to live according to this way, we must have our thoughts, our desires, our actions come from above, be directed by him, not from our old nature. And so we need to understand grace, because a lot of people get grace and mercy confused as if they're the same thing. Grace is much bigger than mercy. It's the administration of God's will into the world. In other words, it's God sharing who he is into the world. He does that by sharing through his people, first in his people and then out of his people, so that you and I can be his blessing to those around us. Grace tells us who we are, our very identity, and how we see and interact with reality around us. That can be different, and grace helps us to do it the right way. It also informs us of our responsibilities in the kingdom being formed around us. Grace is not just forgiveness, it's transformation. It's God putting his will and his ways into our lives so that we can steward well the responsibility that he uniquely assigns each one of us. And it's about giving up control, giving our lives to him so that he can transform our character so that we can handle those responsibilities. And this also means something challenging. Our individual desires must die so we can become part of one corporate son with Jesus as our head. Following Jesus doesn't just change individuals, it forms a new kind of people in the earth. Practically speaking, this means we take on his nature together as one unified people, so that in our hearts, our families, our churches, and our communities, competition is replaced by love, honor, and shared participation in God's glory. So, what does this actually look like in real life? It means the culture of heaven begins shaping how we speak to each other, how we forgive, how we lead, how we serve, how we live it at home and in public. So here are some questions worth asking yourself. Am I living for heaven someday, or am I bringing God's kingdom into my life today? Are my decisions shaped more by the culture around me or by God's ways? Is my home reflecting God's culture of love and honor? And finally, am I stewarding the responsibility God has given me? Because the kingdom of God isn't just meant for someday, God is moving today. The kingdom is meant to be visible in us and through us as we go about our lives in the world now. If you want to do a personal inventory of your kingdom stewardship in every area of your life, we have a kingdom stewardship checklist that you can download for free. And if some of these questions leave you with more questions for yourself than answers, then don't worry. That's why we're making this channel. In future videos, we'll talk about how this kingdom culture can reshape your family and prepare you and align you with what God is doing next in our day. And if you found this video helpful, please share it with someone. And also make sure you're following so you don't miss what's coming next.